The Miraculous World Paris special is finally out, and it was everything I was hoping it would be and more. So today, we are going to be analyzing the special, discussing all of my thoughts and theories, as well as going over some exciting news we have for Season 6. So, let's get into it. Starting from the very beginning, I was in shock when I heard Gabriel singing his very own opening, and I loved getting this different perspective and new art style. Seeing Emily in his arms and how even in this parallel universe, neither his and Adrian's relationship with one another is perfect was really sad to see. Immediately though, we learned that Gabriel, aka Butterfly, is attempting to land in Ladybug and Cat Noir's world, and that Alia and Nino are actually his two only allies. Nino in a rush warns them that he can't hold Shadybug and Claw Noir off, as they're just about entering the lair, and we see Butterfly go on to release a Kamiko instead of an Akuma to Alia, granting her the power to connect to the parallel world so that they can find the help they need, and Ubiquity looked so ethereal and beautiful. Now, we know that with any special comes an exciting new opening with epic music, and this one was so cool. For copyright reasons, I unfortunately cannot play it here, but if you've seen the special, you know the music I'm talking about. You can just hear the drastic change and intensity that comes with this new verse, and this one scene showing Marinette from the other world surrounded by mirror shards, which if you look closely, contain reflections of not just Shadybug, but also other parallel holders, which are revealed more in depth towards the end of this special, is just such cool foreshadowing. Now, keeping in mind that this special takes place right after the third episode from Season 5, Destruction, you'll notice Ladybug's lucky charm that was used to originally tie Monarch be seen behind the Kwamis during this scene, where we're finally getting to see the aftermath of Cat Noir's cataclysm and how Gabriel reacted to it once he was back in his lair, as well as the emotional toll this took on Adrian. Later, we even see Adrian contemplating the powers of his Miraculous and even questioning if he'd ever end up destroying everything around him. Meanwhile, at Marinette's, Alia is reassuring her that she did an amazing job regardless of her plan not succeeding, and this scene here where Marinette is telling Alia how she needs her, whether she has a Miraculous or not, was really important because by the end of the special, we see the two of them, but especially Marinette, reflecting on how different her life could have been if Alia wasn't there from the very beginning of the school year to encourage her that she could stand up to Chloe and most of all, be Ladybug. While Sabine and Tom would be seen watching the news downstairs, Tiki would sneak up to grab a macaron, which I would have totally done the same, and after making her way back upstairs, as Marinette and Alia would continue on with their deep discussion, suddenly Alia's body would be taken over by the Alia from the parallel universe and become Ubiquity. The quick change in music here gives me chills every time I rewatch this scene, and we'd see Butterfly make his entrance into the new verse, where he'd immediately encounter Marinette and beg for her help in finding this world's Ladybug and Black Cat Miraculous holders. I really love this detail where we get to see Marinette's immediate reaction here, where her first instinct was to look at Tiki while holding her hand up to her ear before relaxing herself after Tiki assures her that either she was safe or just not to transform yet, since afterwards Tiki does reveal to Marinette that she's always known about these parallel universes, but never found the time or way to properly introduce such a subject to her. There wouldn't be a minute to lose though, as just after Ubiquity closed the gateway from Butterfly's world to this one, Shadybug holding onto Markov and Claw Noir would be right on his tail, and the way Claw Noir threw Nino 2.0 back into the gateway and says,
"There, you can have your boyfriend back!"
has me still laughing. After tying Ubiquity up, Shadybug would instantly begin examining Marinette's room, where she notices Adrian as her home screen and makes it pretty clear that she doesn't like him. As we'd see Shadybug and Claw Noir on the lookout for Butterfly, we'd begin to get some of our first looks at the two's fighting styles, and Claw Noir's cataclysm here was literally on the same level as Cat Blanc's, which just goes to show how much more powerful the Miraculous powers can be, even without the use user being akumatized. Throughout this special, one of the biggest things that stood out to me was how much more advanced the miraculous powers seemed when the holders from the parallel universe were using them, and even though this special took place during the beginning of Season 5, it felt like more of a setup between the end of Season 5 and beginning of Season 6 to me, because a lot of what we see our parallel characters be capable of doing were things we'd be able to expect our Ladybug and Cat Noir to eventually be capable of later on as well. At the end of Season 5, not only do we finally see Ladybug and Cat Noir receive power upgrades, in that they no longer de-transform after using their miraculous once, but most recently, our first look at what Ladybug will look like in Season 6 was revealed, and by the end of the special, we can see Shadybug and Claw Noir redesign their own costumes. And while I'll be going more in depth about our newest Season 6 news towards the end of this video, I did just want to mention that yes, Cat Noir's costume is also confirmed to change for the coming season. As Tiki would go on to touch on the subject of the parallel universes, she'd also explain why it is Shadybug and Claw Noir were capable of using their miraculouses without de-transforming, and put it into the perspective of being like a security system. Because using a miraculous drains so much energy from the holder and Kwame, the user will automatically de-transform when their health is at risk, especially for those who are younger. However, with these two, they're willing to go past any limit, even if it means destroying themselves in the process, as just moments later, we see Claw Noir forcefully pull Cat Noir's cataclysm into himself, showing that he's willing to take it all. This entire fight scene is so epic. I'm not even lying when I say that I've shown my parents this and was just squealing because I just think it's so cool. And so just as Cat Noir would almost go on to be severely injured by Shadybug's lucky charm, everything slows down after Butterfly releases a Kamiko for him, transforming him into Celesticat and allowing for them all to escape. Since Shadybug just managed to tag along onto his tail, Ladybug would go on to release it, causing for her to fall from the sky, and I could not tell you how many times I have watched this scene. I love them so much. As Claw Noir would attempt to grab Shadybug's miraculous, they'd begin bickering with one another over them, and we'd hear Shadybug bring up this Supreme, again who we can tell has more power over them than themselves, and ultimately decides who it is receives a miraculous. This all would catch Gabriel's attention, and as an Akuma was heading their way, you can tell just how terrified they are of the idea of being controlled by one, never mind even letting one get close to them. Fortunately though, Claw Noir cataclysms it, and they both return back to Marinette's room, assuming that if this is where the gateway was, then there had to be a reason for it, something that could give them a clue. Alia, however, was still here making sure that Sabine wouldn't come in, so now she'd be left hiding as Shadybug began going through all of Marinette's things, and Claw Noir, on the other hand, is just chillin', making himself comfortable, and eventually even playing with Marinette's puppet doll. This part though is where I began to get so teary, because as Shadybug gets a hold of Marinette's diary and starts reading it, her coming to that realization of how perfect her life is here in this other world is so emotional and shows just how broken she is, and we end up learning why. But something catches her attention, something huge, and it's about how a wish can be granted by combining the Ladybug and Black Cat miraculous. Taking advantage of this information, she'd go on to summon a pair of handcuffs and pin Claw Noir down, allowing for her to steal his miraculous just before he could summon up his cataclysm. While she was shocked to find out Adrien was Claw Noir, she wasn't surprised by the fact that he too had purple cracks spreading across his face, in which he hid with makeup. This explains why we see Marinette, Adrien, and even Shadybug cover up their necks, because they must have had even more cracks across their bodies from all of the damage caused by using the miraculouses tirelessly. Meanwhile, over with Butterfly, Ladybug, and Cat Noir, we'd come to learn just how different this parallel world is after Butterfly gets emotional when comparing the two. Just from the opening scene in this special, we get a glimpse of how destroyed this other world is, and the reasoning being because of the Supreme. Multiple times, the Supreme is referred to as a he, and considering he has possession of almost all of the miraculouses, we can most likely assume this is Master Fu. But in the parallel universe, similar to Monarch, the Supreme entrusts these these Miraculouses to people when they're at their lowest, and have only the choice of being loyal to him. This is why in the other verse, despite the Miraculouses being a secret to the public, Gabriel was entrusted with one when he was desperate. Ultimately though, Gabriel in the other verse would go on to steal two of the Miraculous, the Butterfly and Peacock, and because Emily misused the Peacock Miraculous, similar to what happened to her in this verse, she fell ill. But this is where we see Butterfly regain his hope because, as he said, if Ladybug and Cat Noir are the positive incarnations of Shadybug and Claw Noir, then a better world with better people is possible, which is when Marinette and Adrien realize that these heroes are their parallel selves, and that whatever they've gone through that led to them becoming this way is an experience something they can only understand. One of the craziest parts about this special is the fact that Marinette and Adrien from the other verse got their reveal first, but also how casual yet crazy this whole experience was for these two. As soon as Adrien realizes that Marinette is Shadybug, he gets a flashback to this moment where he was in the car while his bodyguard was in the bakery picking up his food, and it's obvious just how much he was crushing on Marinette, considering the way he also blushed after she turned around to look at him. Meanwhile, she seemed to have never even noticed him or purposely ignored him back in their verse. In Adrien's memory, Marinette is also seen running the bakery by herself, which is unusual considering the Sabine and Tom we all know would have been passionately spending their entire day doing so, not Marinette. Towards the end of the special, we do hear Shadybug mention her mother, in that she doesn't have a gentle and calm one back where she's from, meaning that she was probably pretty neglected by both of her parents. So fast forward to Marinette's failed attempt at making the wish, and the sound that caused upstairs. When Sabine was concerned for her, she didn't know how to react other than how she probably always did when it came to talking with her mother in her verse, which is why after Adrien gives her this look, she softens her voice and even goes to say, "I love you too, Mom." Again, this was yet another devastating moment because these kids are going through so much and to top it all off, alone. And it's here when I feel like Marinette finally pauses for a moment after seeing what she's physically doing to herself and feels like there really is no other choice but then to keep going, even if it results in her destroying herself in the process of it. Same for Adrien. Let's fast track back for a moment though, because we obviously have to discuss this whole scene where Marinette is seen going through with making the wish. This is yet another reason why I felt like this special would have been happening sometime after the season 5 finale, because I think if we had actually seen this right after the episode Destruction, we probably would have been really confused with the whole process of making a wish, if not for already having seen the finale. Flag and Tiki win in their regular forms, and true forms can be seen with these supreme versions of the guardian symbol covering their mouths, and the reasoning for this could possibly be because of the rules the Supreme has set upon the Kwamis, who are still under his control, and the Miraculouses in his possession, since later on we do see Nuru, who doesn't have one of these covering their mouth. This could also be the Supreme's way of preventing the Kwamis from disobeying him and using their powers on their own. In the season 5 finale, we learn that Gimme is the Kwami of reality and has the ability to grant a wish, therefore making them one of the most powerful characters. But during Marinette's attempt at making a wish, we see that the process is interrupted by a voice telling them that only the Supreme decides reality, meaning that even the Supreme is more powerful than Gimme in that he can prevent the wish from being made. I couldn't help but hold in my tears watching Shadybug finally let out her cry, and for the first time, Claw Noir being sympathetic with her, because in this moment, it's when they realize that this is their last option. While all of this would be happening though, earlier on, Alia did manage to slip out of the room and grab Sabine's phone so that she'd be able to record any of Shadybug and Claw Noir's plan that she was able to overhear. By doing this, Alia would play a huge role in helping Ladybug and Cat Noir, since Monarch did use teleportation to confront Shadybug and Claw Noir in hopes to offer them an alliance and plan that was too good to pass up. Alia, having been able to record everything they discuss, would eventually be able to find Ladybug and reveal everything she recorded to them. I know so many fans, including myself, were hoping to eventually see Cat Noir's night vision come into play again throughout the series, so seeing this scene highlight that was so cool, and especially makes me hopeful that we'll be able to see more moments like this next season, especially if he gains any new power upgrades. Now that everyone was regrouped and caught up with Monarch's plan, Ladybug, overwhelmed while trying to think of the solution, is reassured by Cat Noir that her plan will work just as they always do, and these Lady Noir crumbs mean everything to me. Ladybug would come up with a genius plan involving Butterfly to pass over his Miraculous to Ladybug after bringing Ubiquity back so that now he could be Ladybug and Cat Noir's secret protection and remain untouched by Monarch, since his object holding the Kamiko would rest in the parallel world. And Ladyfly looks so stunning. She's definitely become my new favorite unification look for Ladybug, next to Dragonbug. At this point, everything would be going to plan. Ubiquity forcefully detransformed, thanks to Monarch now assuring our heroes that Gabriel's object was safe, and furthermore that Ladyfly and Cat Noir would remain protected. In order for them to lure Shadybug and Claw Noir in, they'd have to fall for Monarch's plan first by going after the giant illusions of Shadybug and Claw Noir. However, things would become complicated after Cat Noir nearly just dodges a sneak attack from Claw Noir, resulting in his one ear holding the earbud, connecting him to Ladybug to be cataclysmed. Fortunately though, this would work out in their favor, as even though the two were separated from one another now, they still had the protection of Gabriel's power on their side, and if they hadn't been forcefully separated, I don't think we would have gotten the chance to have seen these beautiful moments and conversations. Shadybug, now having known about Ladybug's personal life, would go on to tell her that breaking this mirror couldn't possibly make her life any worse than it already was. Compared to Ladybug, she didn't have any friends, a boyfriend who cared for her, never mind a good relationship with her own mother. Most of all though, she brings up how even in this parallel universe, Chloe still managed to completely destroy her and her self-confidence, which is when we see Marinette's smile drop as she realizes that this really is what an alternate version of herself could look like, and what could have happened to herself if not for the positive guidance of her friends and family. Guys, I'm doing it again. I'm getting teary because the messages throughout this special are so important, and I love how it was portrayed. Who you surround yourself with is who you become, and it can be so hard to find any light when you're overwhelmed by the darkness that may have consumed you for some time. Ultimately though, we always have a choice to look for that light, and by starting with changing your perspective on the world around you and yourself in a positive view is so incredibly impactful. It especially helps when you're not alone and you do have a friend or family member to lean on to during those harder times. There's always a way. And as if Shadybug and Marinette's moment wasn't emotional enough, Adrien with Claw Noir's was even more heartbreaking when Adrien realizes that this too is him from an alternate universe. Only he knows how much pain and suffering Claw Noir has gone through since the passing of their mother and the emotional neglect that followed from both of their fathers, being too busy with the Miraculous to even notice their own child's despair. Claw Noir, now understanding that this is him, asks Adrien why he hadn't made the wish yet if he knew, and Adrien admits to the fact that he had thought about the idea of it, which we see come up again just a couple of episodes later on in the season, during Passion, when he mentioned the idea to Marinette about making the wish. Ultimately though, Adrien knows the consequences of doing so and reminds Claw Noir that only he can choose whether he continues to remain alone and suffering or reach out to people and make new friends so that he doesn't have to carry this burden alone. Don't even get me started on this sunrise because I get emotional over it every time, and I've rewatched the special now at least 7 times, but I couldn't be more happier to see these two being redeemed and being pulled out of such a dark period of their life. With this newfound hope, Shadybug's appearance instantly changed as she repaired all of the damage, seeing as their costumes are a reflection of their inner selves. Her new look was heavily inspired by Ladybug, while still keeping parts of her previous self, as would Claw Noir's new look be while taking after Cat Noir. And again, referring back to our first look at what Ladybug's appearance will be like in season 6, it seems that even she took some inspiration from her parallel Ladybug form. So just as our parallel heroes would be preparing to return to their world, Monarch had other plans as he'd go on to use the power of the Rooster Miraculous to give him the ability to cross over to other universes in hopes to get a hold of Ladybug and Cat Noir's Miraculous somewhere else. But our duo, as always, was prepared, and after Butterfly redirects Ubiquity's Kamiko to Ladybug, we'd see Lady Ubiquity get straight to work, starting off with protecting a verse where Scarabella and Kitty Noir are the holders of the Miraculous. You guys, we even got an anime version version of Lady Bigwitty and Cat Noir, and as someone who to this day continues to obsess over the PV version, I was screaming over this, and it honestly makes me so hopeful that one day we could still get an anime version. These scenes were done by snowrose_kana from Twitter, and the following world being done by Julia Adaranya, which I was as well so excited to see because I love her artwork and contributions to the Miraculous magazines, which include her art for the comics. And Winnie actually shared a behind-the-scene look at when they were preparing to record this scene, since they did use a physical comic page. The last world that we get a peek at has Mr. Bug and Lady Noir, and we basically end off on a cliffhanger in the sense that Gabriel threatens that he'll destroy Ladybug and Cat Noir in every parallel universe, which we know isn't exactly possible anymore considering he's now, gone. But that isn't to say another Butterfly Miraculous holder won't just step in for him. Now having been introduced to these parallel universes, it makes me all the more excited for the Rio special, since from what we have seen through Jeremy's teasers of concept art for it on his Instagram, if these ideas remain the same or even similar, then we might just be able to expect a connection with this special to the Rio, seeing as our new character is as well a holder for the Butterfly Miraculous. Do keep in mind though that this can certainly change, as these concepts come all the way back from 2019, and our most recent look at the special only shows Ladybug. Either way, I'm still hopeful that we'll be able to see these new heroes again, especially after Thomas replied to Lady Octo on Twitter after they asked if a spin-off or sequel would be possible, to which he responded that while a spin-off series would be too expensive, we could surely expect to see them again. If you guys are interested in a spin-off series though, do be sure to show your interest for it to the creators, because anything's possible. And with that, yet another incredible Miraculous special is complete, and we see our new heroes returning home with a new sense of hope and responsibility in trying to repair their broken world while having to fight against the Supreme. Their conclusion was everything I could have hoped for it to be, yet I also wonder how things could have worked out for Gabriel/Monarch if only he'd had the chance to have a discussion with his parallel self. If you've stuck around until the very end, thank you so much. This might have just been one of my longest videos, and while you're still here, I should tell you that I have some pretty cool emojis I've designed of the characters from the special that can be accessed by joining my Discord server or becoming a channel member just for 99 cents. So if that's something you'd be interested in, then I'll have both of those linked below. As always, be sure to let me know your thoughts and theories down below, and subscribe so you never miss the tea on the show you love, and an extra special thanks to my Guardian members for your support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.